Alright, I have a confession. I am an Eddsworld fan. I think I've been doing this thing long enough that I can be honest and say that one could consider me a part of the Eddsworld fandom, and that distinction comes with baggage. In the same way that everyone says nobody hates Star Wars more than a Star Wars fan, I propose that nobody hates the Eddsworld fandom more than an Eddsworld fan. That's obviously not a universal statement, maybe I'm just noticing a vocal subsection, but if you've been around for a while, you'll probably know what I mean. Well, as somebody who's been an Eddsworld fan for longer than at least one of you has been alive, I am of the opinion that the Eddsworld fandom isn't entirely a bad thing. More than that, I would argue that Eddsworld would not be where it is without the fandom, and at basically every stage in the show's history, fans have been the engine that's kept Eddsworld spinning. And this is why. If we want to have a discussion about the community, it's probably worth covering some particularly notable fans from the show's history. Eddsworld has certainly had plenty over the years, but one of the earliest was a little boy named Thomas. Thomas was a British kid and an aspiring animator, just a little bit younger than Ed at the age of 12. This was very early on in the show's history, like 2002, 2004, and both were very early adopters of the social internet. Thomas was in the forums like Newgrounds and Smosh under the name Squidgen, and in one of those forums, he met Ed Gould. Thomas, by his own admission, essentially pestered Ed into befriending him, and before long, Ed had even offered the boy an opportunity to voice a character in one of his cartoons. By the time Ed started animating Eddsworld, a webcomic about him and his friends, Thomas had become Ed's friend, and so Tom was animated into Eddsworld. It's kind of funny to think that there was a time when Tom was an early admirer of Ed's work, and only later did he go on to achieve greater things within Eddsworld and outside of it. And Tom's not the only one. I say that a case could be made for Matt being the first Eddsworld fan, depending on how you want to look at it. Don't know how he'd feel about that though. What I'm trying to say is that fans have a history of influencing the direction of Eddsworld. These are obviously quite extreme examples, nobody else has gone from fan to friend to steering the ship, but as a collective, we've got more influence than you might think. If you'll allow me to sidetrack for just 1 second, you might have guessed that I am a huge fan of the multiplayer FPS game, Team Fortress 2. I've been playing for more than a decade, it's been my favourite game for about that long, and it hasn't had a major update since 2017. Occasionally we'll get some official artwork for the title screen, but by and large the developers have made almost no new content for the game in 7 years, and the community is stronger than ever. Every new map, cosmetic, and game mode added to the game since Jungle Inferno was created by a member of the community. Big events in the game's history consist of Gmod animations and viral memes. One convincing or polarizing video can sway the mood of an entire fanbase, and back when the game got balance updates, a big YouTuber trying a broken strategy or performing a glitch would result in servers full of players trying it out for days afterwards. In lieu of official content, the community stuck around and made content for each other. Sound familiar? So here's one of my favourite Eddsworld facts. The end came out at the start of 2016. It was supposed to be the Eddsworld finale, or at least a finale. The future of the show was very up in the air at the time. Eddsworld was done, it was over, and there was no guarantee of the show ever coming back. And exactly 1 month later, the channel had finally hit 1 million subscribers. It's a hell of a milestone to reach just as you conclude a 12-year run of your web show. And then for the next 4 years, there was essentially no new activity on the Eddsworld YouTube channel. There were comics and illustrations on social media once in a while, they made some convention appearances, but there was no incentive for anybody to remain subscribed. It was a dead channel. And you want to know how far their subscriber count dropped? How many people unsubscribed in the 4 years of nothing between uploads? The channel doubled in size. It makes no sense that an inactive YouTube channel would spend half a decade doing nothing but going up in popularity, but to borrow the beloved expression, Eddsworld never stopped spinning. It lived on in the people who loved the world that Ed created. Animators and fan artists kept on making art, social media users kept on discussing the show and its history, writers and editors and video essayists kept on going like nothing happened. I spent my time between 2016 and 2020 making videos about a cancelled webtoon. Now it's 2024 and I still haven't run out of things to say. For another major example, well, Eddsworld fan movie. During that weird time after the cancellation, the biggest entity in the fandom in terms of sheer size was the Eddsworld fan movie. And to reiterate what I've said before, the Eddsworld fan movie was a miserable failure. Like, by every conceivable measure, it was a 7-year-long maritime disaster masquerading as a film production. But Edheads kept supporting the project because they loved the world Ed made and wanted to return to it. And eventually, they did. Common wisdom is that when a beloved series or project is cancelled before its time, it's probably never coming back. In 2024, you could probably name more examples of the inverse being true. Fans have a louder voice than ever to tell the studios there is an audience for this. In the 1960s, it was Star Trek fans writing letters en masse to Paramount to get the show another season. In the 2020s, it's a never-ending waterfall of unofficial material and people telling you how much they want to come back for more. If somebody connected with the show wants that show to return, a thriving fanbase can be enough to justify investing in that show's future, and that's the position that Ed's family and Matt found themselves in. So they hired people with the skills to bring it back. Animators like Jackie Lopez, Penny Bogart, Billy Crinion, artists who cut their teeth working on the Eddsworld fan movie. It's come full circle. Fanservice 2 premiered to more than 2 million subscribers, half of whom had subscribed after the channel spent 4 years doing nothing. And you know what else? It's been 4 more years since Fanservice 2 came out, and what's the audience size doing now that they're actually making videos? It's doubled again. So the fandom kept Eddsworld afloat while the show was on hiatus, and now they're successfully helping to bring Eddsworld to the new generation. I'll say what I said in my last video, the guys at Eddsworld do love the fans. If they didn't, they wouldn't keep on hiring them. There's been some rumblings on social media about Eddsworld's policy on fan creations. I hardly use Twitter or Reddit nowadays, and even I started to notice it. I'm obviously no lawyer, I'm just someone who uses Eddsworld clips in a way that I think is transformative in order to make my own videos, including a couple of videos in the past about copyright and bootlegs. And to that end, I say, keep making art, you're probably fine. There's a limit, obviously. If you go re-uploading clips and stealing designs to sell on a backpack, then that's just profiting off someone else's work. If Eddsworld didn't have a stated policy prohibiting the unrestricted use of their IP, then that's just an invitation for just a bit crazy Cocomelon edition and sketchy Eddsworld NFTs. Nobody wants you training AI on Ed's animation. This is why copyright law exists. You might know that I am a big advocate for a thriving public domain and some kind of copyright reform, but there is a limit, and right now, legally speaking, fan art does cross that line.
It's against the law.
Like fan art, when fans take existing properties and they create new works based off of them.
Completely illegal.
But here's the thing, there hasn't been a recent crackdown on Eddsworld fan projects. There just hasn't. The copyright section of the website has remained unchanged as the crew go about hiring fans on official projects and hosting Inktober events that encourage you to draw Eddsworld fan art. If you're someone who loves making Eddsworld related artworks, I encourage you to keep going. So long as you're using common sense, respecting international copyright law, clearly distinguishing yourself from official material, not being greedy, and not taking the mick, you're probably doing alright. I won't promise Eddsworld isn't going to file a cease and desist, just that I can't think of a time they did that on any fan projects. The overseas factories that stay afloat by stealing Ed's artwork are probably of bigger concern right now. That's just me, I ain't speaking on behalf of anyone. The only reason Eddsworld Beyond still exists is because people are watching and supporting and buying merchandise. It only came back in the first place because there was so much momentum behind the property even when they weren't making new episodes. The only reason the Eddsworld legacy exists is because enough fans were enthusiastic enough to fund it by more than 160%. And when Ed was making the show, I'm sure his fans kept him going as well. Speaking from personal experience, I've always wanted to make videos. I've been making movies and editing videos since I was a little kid. I love doing this. But I make the videos I make because I know there are people out there who watch them. YouTube would be such a lonely place if it weren't for the comment section or the view count to give creators an idea of the kind of impact we're having. It's a constant voice that says keep going, keep creating. You'll either reach new heights or have a great time trying. As for me, well, this is the year Eddsworld hired me to create something for them. And who knows, you might be next.